and welcome back to a special rainy day episode of the City of Bridges podcast. I am your moderator, Justin Masak, and with me is our panel. This is Scout.
Hi.
And Lucy.
Hello.
And Kayla.
Hi.
And Austin.
Hello.
And Randy.
Hey.
So today we have, we're an outdoor school, and so on rainy days we have to put up these tarps and do school under them. And so today we thought it would be a fun time to show everyone kind of what that looks like. So if the audio sounds weird, or if you hear a big truck go by, or if you hear a helicopter go by, you're just getting the authentic City of Bridges experience. So to start off this podcast, I want to start by dreaming of the dream school, which we are currently in the current dream school. But how do we make this dream school dreamier? So this is a segment that I call "We Are the Carpenters, Not the Band." We are building the ideal dream school, and last week we talked about where we would build this, like what location on Earth, or maybe not Earth, we would build it. It ended up being on Earth. So right now we have a school. We bought a plot of land that is a floating island of recycled materials with a tree on it, and part of the school will be in the tree. So that's what we're currently dealing with. Today I want to talk about not like the land that it's sitting on, but the school itself. What does it look like? What's its architecture? So I want us to design this school. Tell me what features does this building have that makes it the dream school?
I would say it looks old and haunted, and it has a moat.
I like that. Only slightly terrifying.
The moat on the floating island.
Yes.
Yeah, the moat on a float.
Yeah.
It's like a lake and a lake and a lake. You know, you get like a lake with an island with a lake on the island, and then
Yeah.
the lake on the island in the lake is another island that has a lake.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
You have to
It's
start
a
off with a really big
Sounded like that's
So we have this haunted school. What do you think? Is that something that
It's not actually haunted.
haunted looking?
Yes.
Wait, I kind of want it to be actually haunted. It's slightly disappointing if it's not actually haunted.
Potentially haunted. There have been rumors of a haunting in this school. What else? What features does this school have?
I think that there should be a tunnel that the tree isn't actually a real tree. It's hollowed out, and then you get to climb up the tree into the tree house. And it connects the tree house, the tree school part, and the weird haunted castle thing.
So the treehouse is not haunted?
No, I don't think the tree house is haunted.
Okay.
the tree.
It's like 200 years old, and we hollowed it out so we can have a ladder that goes up it.
Okay. From inside of the tree.
Yes.
Cool. Austin, what do you think?
Not only is Lucy's idea a really good idea, instead of having a gaping hole in the middle of the tree, we can have like one of those doors on top of the submarine, like
Uh-huh.
a spinny handle thing. I don't know what it's called, but we can have one of those instead of a gaping hole in the middle of the tree.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So like you climb the ladder in the middle of the tree and you get to this like hatch door
Yes.
Yeah.
to the top.
It's a trapdoor, but not as hidden as a trapdoor.
And you have to have a secret knob.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do we
It's
have
like
a secret knob?
What?
Do we have a secret knob?
Not yet. But I think we'd have to have one.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Well, in order for it to
But
be a
then
secret.
But we can't tell the listeners.
Yeah.
But then we have to have an extra staff member to be listening for the secret knock whenever someone wants to
Yeah,
come.
how does the first person get up there?
Or instead of having a person stationed at the door, we have a robot that senses sound, and then once you knock the correct knock, the door unlocks and you can push the knob.
So-
At this point, we might as well just have like a pin you use to
Yeah.
get up
The
there.
pins are hackable.
But not
Secret knobs are not.
Yeah.
Impenetrable.
So, I mean, what I'm hearing in this treehouse secret knock submarine haunted spooky school design architecture is that we probably need a lot of spaces to like make and do things, right? In order to construct all this stuff. So having a school that has lots of varied spaces for doing different sorts of things sounds like a sensible
Yeah.
way to think about this.
So we have haunted house, we have tree house, we have a very detailed entrance to the tree house.
Yes.
Yeah.
Also robots. So like let's talk about like so you walk in a treehouse is it sounds small to me. I mean like we could have a giant tree, that's fine.
Exactly.
Tell me about how you feel about like spaciousness in the school. Do you need big hallways? Do you want like small rooms?
Personally, I don't think we need super large hallways in any school because that takes up extra space and is only used whenever classes are not in session.
It's just like a normal hallway.
Yeah, just
Yeah,
like
like-
a normal sized hallway and normal sized classroom instead of big hallways and small classrooms.
Okay, cool. So we're how many students do you think are going to be at the school?
60?
Okay, so this is kind of a small school.
Yes.
Wait, I have a question.
Yes.
Do we like live on this island, or like how do we get onto it every day?
The commute does seem to be a
So
problem.
we take a ferry.
Yes.
Yeah, it seems like
Fair.
a lot of
Or-
work.
We were
Okay.
talking about why this is a floating island last week because if there's like something going on somewhere in the world, it would be nice for us to be able to get there
So
and see it.
it's also like a bunker. Oh wait, never mind.
Or another thing, if it's like a large building, like a hospital-sized building, it would be a pretty cool school. If it's a hospital-sized building, we can have a helipad on the top to the City of Bridges helipad.
Yes.
Our bus helicopter.
Yes.
Yeah.
While that's going, because I'm going to cut that out, I'm going to move this close to the table. Okay, so it's not a very big school.
They're gonna play songs because it's lunch.
It's a school on the platform.
That's all.
You can just have a part of the podcast of those just listening to the
We might cut that out.
I think this is nice outro music.
Yeah, it's like intermission.
film. Yeah.
Beautiful. You thought it was the end.
Hymns go on for a really long time. Like when you think they're going to end, they start up again.
Yeah. It's like, this is how many verses?
A lot.
8.
This reminds me of being in choir.
Play ball.
All right.
Okay. So, we, haunted building, also treehouse. Really, we want to like focus on the class space, not like the space to get between the classes.
Okay.
There's, we were talking about how we had to like drive this ship to this island to like multiple places around the world. So it seems like we're a boarding school.
It sounds like it.
Is that cool with you? Do you want to go to a boarding school that's floating on the trash island?
As long as the people are nice and the food is good.
I mean, I'm just a family, but
Yeah.
Maybe your family comes.
Well, the fun thing about today's technology is you can call anyone from anywhere.
Yeah.
that's true.
Also, we could have like, don't have to do traditional school like scheduling of like the year. We could have like 2 months and then like 2 weeks off and then
Ooh,
yeah.
getting creative.
Mhm.
I like that. Awesome. Cool. So I want to talk to you. This is kind of related. So you said that you wanted a 60-person school. Like that's kind of like the max size of the school that you wanted. So I want to talk to you about like that's a pretty small number. I think if you took most high schools in America, they're mostly higher than larger than 60. So let me talk to you about class size. So on this school, on our dream school, we have to make decisions about policies that we're making. Here at City of Bridges and also Dream Haunted School on a recycled island. So one of the things that I want to ask you about is the class size. How do you feel, what do you think is like an acceptable size for a class? And then like what factors do you think make that decision for you?
Personally, I think it should be no less than 10 and no more than 20. Because if you're teaching, obviously I have no experience in teaching, but if you're teaching a class with 30 to 45 people, that's a lot of people who need to hear you talk, and there's more of a chance that someone isn't going to hear you, and then it just devolves into this cycle of having to repeat yourself over and over and over again. And for the students who got what you said in the first place, it's going to start getting really repetitive.
Okay, great. What are some other thoughts?
I think that there should be 4 classes of 15. So
Okay.
4 times 15 equals 60. And it's like it has also needs to be no less than 10 and no greater than 20. Right in the middle, 15. That's like, I think that's a solid number.
That sounds nice.
Wow. We landed on 15 pretty quickly. Tell me about your experience as like a student. Have you been in classes with less than 10 or more than 20 students?
Me personally, I have not, but I would not like to be in a classroom with 20 people.
Okay.
Because it just gets really cramped and stuffy real quick.
Okay.
I went to public school. I went to Obama, which is right across over there. And class sizes were usually 25 to 30 kids. And it always got really loud. And some kids would actually be doing the work, but since like there wasn't enough teachers to like handle all the kids and make sure everyone was doing like their work, like some kids always got away with not having to do anything because the teacher's attention span could only handle so many kids.
Great.
And I had been homeschooled for like a really long time before I came here, so my classes were always me and my sister, so 2 people were my classes.
Did you feel like you were missing anything? Like you came here eventually. So like was being around other students a part of that decision?
Yeah, it was. I wanted to be more social and make more friends. Yeah, it was.
And Randy, as a teacher, this is why we usually record it inside. Randy, as a teacher, tell me about your experience teaching classes and what class size does to your experience as a teacher.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I mean, I have been a teacher in public schools and a principal in public schools. I've been a principal in some really big schools. But on the teaching side of things, because I agree, we've talked a lot about this sort of upper end. That, how do you meet each student and their needs and be able to sort of give them what they want and what they need. And if you get class sizes that are too large, it can be really challenging to do that. The class sizes that are too small can also be a challenge because, particularly if you're doing like collaborative group work and discussions and things like that, you also need like a critical mass of voices that are there to contribute to discussions and conversations. So I think the 10, between 10 and 20 and maybe the sort of 15 number makes a lot of sense in my 20-something years working in schools.
Awesome. So then, Lucy, you said Obama does not have class sizes of 10 to 20 students. They usually have much more than 20, right?
Yes.
Why do you think that, why do schools have so many students in a class?
Well, like specifically public schools do. Because Obama's a magnet school, so it takes kids from all across the city. And so they have a lot of kids. Like I don't know how many students they have. But whenever I was in 6th grade, there was 6 classes, and I think there was like about 120 6th graders. So I honestly just think because they don't have enough money to be able to have extra teachers and extra classrooms.
Okay. So we think it's a budgetary issue.
Yes, like there's a lot of kids going to Obama, but they don't have enough stuff to be able to cover all their students, like all their students' needs.
Okay. And then, Randy, from a teacher's perspective, what do you think is factoring into schools having large class sizes?
No, I think Lucy hit the nail on the head, or fed the fish I don't know, whatever. Another good expression for the same thing. I don't like hitting stuff.
Politely ask the nail to go into the wood.
Politely, yeah. Work collaboratively with the nail in order to help it
Oh my god.
achieve the skills, knowledge, skills, and understanding that it needed
Oh
to
my god.
enter the wood. I used one of the PETA, instead of kill two birds with one stone. I used the feed two birds with one stone in an email the other day. But I think Lucy is absolutely right. It is a budgetary issue, and having been not only a principal but also a central office administrator, how you allocate funds. We're studying economics right now, and it's the central economic problem. There are limited resources, and so you have to there will be scarcity, and so then you have to make trade-offs. And one of the fundamental trade-offs is more students for fewer teachers. So I think that bears out economically.
Also, like, all the schools aren't equal, even if they should be, because often schools are funded by, like, the taxes from that neighborhood they're in. And so, well, there's a whole bunch of factors to why neighborhoods aren't always equal and don't always pay equal taxes. So sometimes, like, especially if you go to school, like, you go to school based on what neighborhood you are, like, you're automatically set up to do not as well as other people who are just born in a better neighborhood.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, go ahead.
No,
I
go
thought
ahead.
you were done. So schools in rich neighborhoods have enough, get more money, so can afford to have more teachers and smaller class sizes, which makes those neighborhoods, those students get a more ideal experience, because you guys said that was a more ideal experience to have a 10 to 20 class size. So do we think that, so there is a scarcity, as we're learning in economics. We know that where the money is coming from might not always be equitable or have the right decision. Do we think that the way that schools are spending money is spent the right way? From your experience in schools, do you feel like you would allocate funds a different way? What do you think, Brandon?
Gosh. It's so complicated. And we're talking, there's so many different factors, and we could spend whole classes talking about school funding. And particularly we're talking about public school funding, which varies so much state by state. Pennsylvania's has such a heavy reliance on property taxes in its school funding that there are really vast disparities. But then the actual allocation of funds, a huge, typically the largest expenditure is salaries and benefits, and then sometimes pension requirements for pensions being retirement funding for staff. I don't. There's so many factors to that. I feel like we could go on forever.
Sure.
I know that Obama had a little bit of a thing with their girls' soccer team. They weren't getting. I also was on sports teams while I was at Obama, and we were often understaffed, and we didn't have adequate coaching, and I don't know. Sometimes we do go on these big school trips where everyone pays a bunch of money to go to Baltimore or Hershey Park or Canada, and so I don't know if that money is being spent well. I don't know if it's worth it to go on a big school trip.
Okay. So if you were an administrator, you would weigh class size more heavily than school trips?
I would say so, yeah. School trips are cool, but they're not as important as like the actual school, your actual like, education experience.
Awesome.
Again, me being homeschooled makes it really hard for me to have like anything to say at this topic.
Yeah. We are definitely coming from different experiences, but I think like as a homeschool student, you've experienced like having a really small class size for a long time. So like that like individual attention is a part of. I don't want to like. I don't know how much you liked homeschool, but if you liked it or didn't like it, your class size was a part of that. So it sounds like there's like a bit of like a complicated issue here of like there's it seems like the scarcity is really hard for us to deal with because we have the money that's coming into the school. What we're allocating it to is not exactly like we're not pointing at it and being like this is a terrible use of your money. Like it's at least a complicated thing to go through. It's something that isn't black and white, something easy for us to pick out and say like take it from here, put it here, so that we can reduce our class sizes. And yet, class sizes are larger than we would like in public schools, at least in Obama.
Other schools too. I've been to a couple of other public schools, and the class sizes were still too big. And I know other kids who go to public schools and they complain about the same thing.
But it doesn't seem like it's exactly like the school's fault for allocating their funds that way. It's just that they're not getting much funds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, this is why I say it's complicated because there are larger questions of like what's the discretionary spending that they can actually do? What are the funds that they actually have control over is a small percentage of their budget because so much of it is locked into other things, right? Like salary and benefits and pensions and real estate and utilities, things like that. But it's what they have to work with is a fraction of the actual budget that they have.
Awesome.
I mean, I think there are larger, and again, there are these sort of larger questions of how do we fund education in general, and what should schools and education look like, and what are the important experiences that we have.
Yeah. And so the next thing that I want to talk to you about is, and this can be related or unrelated, it's kind of up to you. So over the weekend, Joe Biden won the presidential election pretty much, apparently not officially. It's, the 2020 presidential election. So during his victory speech, he mentioned that his wife is an educator, who up till recently was teaching at a community college. So I have the quote from him. He says, "For America's educators, this is a great day. You're going to have one of your own in the White House. What I want to ask you is what would you ask from Jill Biden, who is Joe Biden's wife? What support do you think schools need from, like, on a federal level, on a countrywide level?"
Instead of relying on the community to pay for, well, having the community help pay for your school is okay. It's not the only way a school should be able to make money. There should be some way the government, I'm not sure if the government does, I'm not very well versed in this topic, but the government should help weigh in on school funding.
Awesome. So, like, the federal government should be able to provide funds to, like, your local school district, you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know. I think that I don't think we should put less pressure on like middle school and high school students because they're just kids at the end of the day. I think we should treat them more like kids than like young adults.
Okay. Where do you think this pressure is coming from? Or like what kinds of pressure is it?
It's like testing, and like they ask you like what do you want to be when you grow up, and like test scores, and like what college do you want to go to, and like all of those things.
I don't want to like disagree with you, but I like it to have like the sense of maturity. Now that I'm in high school, I mean, being the youngest one here, I don't know how much that makes my opinion different than you guys, but like I also love acting like a small child. It's like it's great, yeah. But I also like to have that like sense of like belonging with people, like with older people, with the teachers, and like I like to have like I don't know, I just like being treated like more, not like
A
an
child?
adult. No, well, I like not being treated like a child anymore. Yeah.
I think there can be a balance.
Like, I agree with Scott. Like, I think there should be a balance of where you're able to act like you're younger, but when you have to, you're able to switch back and be older and have like mature conversations with like adults and stuff.
Okay.
I don't know how Jill Biden can help that. I'll be honest.
Jill Biden, can you call my mom?
Please.
Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. She's gonna like. I don't know if she's gonna even make anything different, but I mean,
I don't like.
But it started from the idea that you have a lot of pressure put on you.
Yes.
Yes, I
Yeah.
agree that there is a lot of pressure put on high school students. Not so much middle school students,
Disagree.
but there's just a little bit less. There's like it doesn't go down by much. There's pressure on everyone in school, whether you're in school or homeschool, to learn. And I feel that part of the pressure is waking up at 5 in the morning to go to school. That gives, personally, not personally, because I know people who wake up at 4 to catch a 2-hour bus ride to their school.
Right.
They usually come home exhausted, eat dinner, go to bed, and they hardly have time to do their homework that they have. That applies a lot of pressure because then they have to skip events like birthday parties
Yeah.
or time with their friends. And high school is the most social experience you will have beyond 18. And having a lot of that devoted to tests like ACTs and PSAs or other stuff like that removes from that social experience. And humans are generally very social creatures. And removing their natural behavior is what causes, don't quote me on this, but is what causes
Pressure.
people, pressure.
I'm gonna quote you and put it on a t-shirt.
Like,
Okay, have fun with that.
this is like probably not something useful, but my favorite quote from an anime I hear on lo-fi is humans are social animals that can't live alone.
Yeah?
Yeah, we depend a lot on people of higher authority,
Okay.
like teachers to teach us, state representatives to hear our voice and actually do stuff that we recommend or take action to change. I don't know why this is the only 2 examples I can give.
Awesome. Randy, what would you ask from Jill Biden?
Not much. I mean, it's interesting because the federal government constitutionally doesn't actually have a role in education. So all the No Child Left Behind and Every Student Succeeds and Race to the Top, all of these federal programs that have led to standardized testing and things like that are all tied to funding, because the federal government can't actually mandate what it is that schools can do, public schools, again. And I think that there is a real, I would love to see communities have a greater control over the well-being of the schools within their community, which isn't really the role of the federal government. That's much more of a local and state role.
Cool. So now that Jill Biden, an educator, is the first lady, you don't feel any more confident about schools having a brighter future?
No, I do. I'm more confident about schools having a brighter future because I think some of the actions taken by some other departments of education had a negative impact on the well-being of schools. And I'm hoping that they won't do some of those things.
Awesome. Lucy, did you have something to say before we went on?
Yeah. Also, I would ask Jill Biden to, like, I don't know, advocate for students' mental health, because, like, I see on a decent amount of social media about how, like, school really stresses out people, and it's like learning is supposed to be a fun and positive experience, but it feels like I don't know, it feels like a job for some students, and I really would like Jill Biden to I don't know, do something like to advocate for our mental health.
Awesome. So like,
And not something dumb like feel your feelings.
but like your like mental experience is important, not just like your high school experience is kind of hinging on your mental health. So it doesn't matter like how cool your teacher is, doesn't matter what you're learning, how interesting it is. If you're not in like a nice frame of mind, you're not going to benefit from it. We are unfortunately coming up to the end of the podcast. We're going to do a bit of a short one today because we are outside in Tarp School and running into your lunch. So here's the thing. Last week, the students who were on this podcast and Randy had a baton, and they had to pass it to us, who are picking it up, and now we have to pass it to the next students.
Not literally.
We could literally find a baton someday.
Yes. Someone wants
So-
to donate a baton.
At this time next week, here's how the Baton Pass works. At this time next week, we have to make a prediction about something that's going on. So what we're making a prediction about this week is, on Monday, a Facebook post is going to go up advertising this very episode that you're on. I want to ask you, at this time of recording next week, how many likes will that post have? Scout, how many likes?
I said 18 likes. I'm optimistic.
Lucy, how many likes?
11 likes.
Kayla. Austin.
11.
Randy.
14.
I have 8. Awesome. So, whoever is closest will get the wonderful responsibility of awarding star panelists and appreciating something they said. Whoever is furthest away gets the terrible responsibility of telling everyone that the podcast is over and it's time to go home. So last week, our panelists made a prediction on Donald Trump's latest tweet. So I said at this time, this week, we are going to go to Donald Trump's Twitter account, find his latest tweet, and count how many capital letters are in that tweet. So I said 10 letters, Randy said 0, Scout said 4, and Allie said 31. In addition, Allie said all of them. Randy, do you have Donald Trump's Twitter account?
Yeah, I just counted.
And it is
14.
14. So at 14, that means that I am the closest, and I win a point for my team, which we haven't decided on a name yet. Maybe we'll do that next podcast. And the furthest away at 14 is Allie. Got a little further away. So Allie would be in, so we have to split this in two. Allie would be in Scout and Lucy's seat. So Scout and Lucy, you have to share the terrible responsibility of telling everyone that the podcast is over and it's time to go home. I get the wonderful responsibility of awarding star panelists and appreciating something they said. But before we do that, by the way, you can end the podcast any way that you like.
We do it together though, right?
Right. But before we do that, I have some business to attend to, and that is to tell everyone who we are. So, we are City of Bridges High School. We're a high school in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We're dedicated to student agency and personalized real-world learning. If you want to learn more about us, you can go to cityofbridgeshighschool.org, or you can go to Facebook or Instagram at cityofbridgeshs. Please leave us a comment below with your thoughts. If we got anything wrong, or if you have anything to add, we welcome you, and I'd love to read some comments on the podcast. And if you really love what we're doing, we have a Patreon, so you can go to patreon.com/cityofbridges and become a patron of ours and get this podcast 2 days early. So, with that being said, I get the wonderful responsibility of awarding star panelists and appreciating something that they've said. And I'm definitely awarding it to Lucy, who recommended that we get a haunted school. And with that, that means that Lucy and Scout, you get the terrible job of telling everyone that the podcast is over and it is time to go home. You can do it in any way that you want. We do encourage British accent.
Well, that's about it. Anything else, Scout?
I don't think so.
Okay, well, see you later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.